Hello, I am Timothy Law Snyder, president of Loyola Marymount University, which we call LMU, and this is On Location Merger Edition. On Location, we are at the Marymount Center, and we are to discuss the merger of Marymount College with Loyola University, which took place July 1st, 1973. This is the Big 5-0. I welcome each of you who've been at LMU back for your fall semester. For those who have never been here, welcome to LMU. Please know that we hope that your life is one of joy and accomplishment while here. I'm very proud that we have with us three persons who are deeply involved with LMU and have been through these 50 years. I'll begin and go left to right. We are with Sister Mary Beth Ingham, CSJ. We are with Reverend Robert Caro, SJ. We are with Sister Mary Janino, R.S.H.M. And of course, each have been involved with LMU for so long, but are still, as I mentioned. So Sister Mary Beth and Sister Mary are presently LMU trustees, and Father Caro is our alumni chaplain. So these are persons who know everything about the merger. I'd like to start, if we could please, with that now iconic photo of Sister Raymunde McKay from Marymount College and Charlie Casassa, president of Loyola University at the time, two presidents coming together. There was the moment when they signed the document, bringing us together. I'd ask each of you to do what we typically see in cartoons, and that is there's a thought bubble above each head, and then fill in the blank. What would you place for each of these individuals for their thought bubble when that picture was taken?
Well, I can imagine Mother Raymunde saying, "It's okay, we girls, we've got this together." And Father Casassa saying, I wonder if they've got this together.
Well, I've seen this picture many, many times, and I've always been struck by Father Casassa stroking his chin like that, wondering what he's getting into. Mother Raymunde also looks a little uncertain about how it's all going to play out. However, I agree with Mary Beth that there was a lot of hope and optimism there. But the thing that strikes me about both of them, I think that as they approached this merger, they had this idea that these two schools had to come together to form a coeducational institution because the time had come for no longer single-sex institutions. That had certainly been true back in the 1950s when many of us, like my age, were in college. But by the 60s, single-sex Catholic colleges and universities were moving toward coeducation, as were other private schools. But the thing that strikes me about the two religious here, Father Casassa and Sister Raymunde, they had to overcome the opposition of Cardinal McIntyre because he was not so progressive in his thinking. He had just returned a few years before from the Vatican Council, where surely he was part of the party of non-historical orthodoxy. He was not known being a forward thinker. And so Sister Raymunde and Father Casassa had to overcome his opposition to coeducation in his archdiocese. And I believe it was Sister Raymunde who really pushed the envelope with him by pointing out to him that, well, it's not just coeducation, it's co-instruction. And he seemed to accept that. But Mary, maybe you have more to say about that.
Well, I don't know. I think you were pretty eloquent, Bob. In looking at this picture, there is a wonderment, like, what have we done? And what is to come? I think both Marymount and Loyola took a big risk at that time. And it was in anticipation of let the adventure unfold.
There was another conversation going on at the same time, and that was between Mother Raymunde and Mother Felix CSJ, who was the president of St. Joseph College in Orange. And in 1967, they began to talk with one another. Mother Felix reached out to Mother Raymunde, wondering if our St. Joseph College, which was built as a teacher training college for our own sisters, would do what Marymount PV had done, and that was open to lay students. Mother Raymunde responded by saying, I have another idea. And in that sense, invited the CSJs to send their newly minted PhDs, because many of our sisters received their doctorates at Catholic University of America. So we had a full college faculty that could then join the R.S.H.Ms in forming the Marymount College that would come to this campus.
I think both Mother Raymunde and Mother Felix were women ahead of their time. Raymunde definitely had her pulse on the signs of the times in relationship to the church, to higher education, and her own discipline, which was economics. She had a doctorate from the London School of Economics. And it was after the Second Vatican Council, and in conversation with Mother Felix, they both realized that having a separate school of education to form sisters for ministry was not really appropriate for this day and age. And Raymunde definitely was looking at a model of education for young women who were going to be formed as leaders and hopefully animators of a transformed society. I think in her mind, she was questioning, would a single-sex college be appealing to women of that generation?
You know, I want to pick up on something you said, Mary. You mentioned that both Mother Raymunde and Mother Felix had their sense of where the church was going. I forget how you put it, in touch with the pulse of the church. I mean, I think that was also true of Father Casassa. I know that from some of the programs he had initiated here at the university, you know, even prior to the merger. But the point was both of them were in tune with where Vatican II was leading the church in the 1960s. It's well known that the Cardinal McIntyre, you know, really was not in tune with that movement. And I think it's a good omen for us in the sense of how we understand our own Catholic identity. It's a part of the movement of the church that was certainly taking hold after Vatican II, but our present Pope Francis has picked up on those same themes. He's trying to reinvigorate that sense of the way the church is moving. And there are controversies in church politics as in our secular politics, but the university here, I think, can take a cue as to what its stance is from the way Mother Raymunde and Mother Felix and Father Casassa were forward thinking in their time and moving ahead with this merger, even though not everybody at the time agreed with them.
In some ways, they didn't move ahead with the merger immediately. They moved ahead with the experiment.
Right.
And the experiment
5 years.
was Marymount College at Loyola University. And I came to Marymount College at Loyola University in 1969. I belonged to the second class of women that joined the first class of women who came in 1968. And for my 4 years, there were 2 institutions. I won't say there was double of everything, but there were double of a lot of things. There were 2 history departments. There were 2 modern language departments. Some of the departments only Loyola had. And so the economics was the Loyola department. So for example, a woman that I graduated with, my diploma says Marymount College at Loyola University. She was an econ major. Her diploma says Loyola University of Los Angeles. And so even among the classes that graduated, depending upon what your major was, if you were in the fine arts, it was more Marymount. If you were in the sciences, it was more Loyola. So all of that fell out. I can remember even the first semester actually it was quarters. We were on the quarter system. We had some classes that were Marymount classes only. And we had some classes that were mixed classes. So that fell away after the first quarter into the end of my freshman year. Things were becoming more and more joined together, but the departments and their separateness, I think, remained until close to 1973 when the actual merger occurred.
5 years of sharing faculties and facilities.
In terms of the faculties, Sister Martin Byrne was in the School of Business, which Marymount did not have, but Loyola did. And
Pat
Sister
Lacey
Pat
taught
Lacey
biology.
taught
That's right.
biology in Loyola University.
These were male-dominated fields.
These were
certainly at the
male-dominated
time,
fields at
least one
the
still
time.
is.
And I just want to pick up something that Bob said in terms of the forward-lookingness of Mother Raymunde, Mother Felix, and Father Casassa in relation to Cardinal McIntyre. I think the three of them were able to identify a common ground, to work with the Cardinal to, in a sense, win him over to this new venture in terms of Catholic education, Catholic higher education for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles.
Obviously, you spoke to compromises, you spoke to some unease among various individuals. What was the buzz in your communities? Was there a WTH, what the heck? Was there an eagerness? Was there an excitement? I can't believe they're doing this? And when did you first hear about the idea of a merger? Was it after it happened? Days before? Years before? What was that like?
Well, let me jump in. I was not here at the time of the merger.
Okay.
I came to this campus, I started my job in the English department in 1976. But my first visit to the campus after the merger was in 1974. At that time, the merger had been in effect for about a year, a little over a year into the following academic year. It was in November, as I recall. And so I meet the English department. Who do I meet there but Sister Frances Gussenhoven, who was this wonderful English professor with a degree from Stanford. And I was really quite impressed and happy to meet Sister Frances. During that same visit, it happened that I was staying in the Jesuit community, and the community was hosting this pre-Thanksgiving dinner, which became a kind of annual event, where all the sisters and any other priests or religious on the campus, we all came together for a celebration, mass and social hour and dinner, as happens in the Jesuit community. And I met on that occasion other sisters, and the one I do remember standing out in my mind that I got acquainted with that evening, at the time a member of the CSJ community, Raymunde McKay. Now, she subsequently left the community but remained on the faculty here. We've been friends all these years. So that was my first association with the merger after it had happened. Things were not totally, copacetic all around, because there were members of my own community and students that I was told about who were cutting the Marymount part of the decals that they put in the back windows of their cars out because they still wanted to be associated with Loyola. They couldn't sell Loyola gear in the bookstore, of course, but there was a sporting goods store down the street that did a land office business in selling it. So all those kinds of things were going on. So the traditionalism was not just on the part of Cardinal McIntyre, but there were others who shared in that. And my own sense of that at the time, but progressively moving forward, is that yes, there were hard feelings on various sides, but they didn't appreciate the goodness and the value of the merger, because in the long run it worked out so much better for us in terms of the integration of two Catholic colleges, bringing them together to form one major university, than I think happened in other places where they didn't have that kind of merger of two institutions.
So I want to add a little bit to that, just with the insight that while there's an institutional dimension we can talk about, there's also the interpersonal dimension, and that you mentioned with your friendship with Marianne. I can remember when I first returned to LMU in 1987 as a faculty member, the Thanksgiving dinners at the Jesuit residence, and I do remember in the 70s, after I graduated, I entered the convent. So I didn't know anything about the merger before I graduated, but after I graduated, I would hear about Thanksgiving dinner with the Jesuits, Halloween parties were sponsored by the CSJs at our house at 8000 Regis Way, and St. Patrick's Day parties were hosted by the Marymount sisters at Levy Center. So 3 times a year, there were these big celebrations that really helped develop the friendships among the people. In the same way, I think that when I was a student, the friendships among the students were developing, even though the two institutions were separate. You can separate the institutions, but it's very hard to separate the people.
Well, full disclosure, I never went to Loyola and I never went to Marymount. My experience of the merger comes through stories that had been told to me. And in relationship to the sisters, I think that there was an excitement in moving forward with this venture, but also a hesitancy. With the risk came some loss, as many sisters did join the faculty, the staff, whether it be, student affairs, enrollment, finances, but others did not have a place because they did not have the competencies or the qualifications for this type of work. In reference to what Mary Beth and Bob just shared, the relationships that formed early on amongst the three congregations continued to grow and strengthen and spilled over into many aspects of our lives. I know that in ministry with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, I depended heavily on the theology department at LMU, and they made a significant contribution to the professional formation of lay ecclesial ministers. In my work with Against Human Trafficking, Jose Garcia Moreno contributed significantly to creating PSAs that could be understood both in English and in Spanish. And we have great friends among the Jesuit community and the CSJs, and they've just continued to unfold and enrich our lives.
One thing that's coming out of this conversation is all three of you are so positive about those moments and the lasting relationships and phenomena associated with them. What do you think has happened? We could even go decade by decade over the 50 years at LMU that would not have happened without the merger.
Well, one thing that comes to my mind are the three institutes that we now have on campus: the Center for Reconciliation and Justice, the Marymount Institute for Faith, Culture, and the Arts, and the Center for Ignatian Spirituality. Those are living reminders of the different charisms that are present here on campus. So that institutionally, I think that's one piece that would not be here if it weren't for the three.
One of the things that occurs to me is that early on, we were aware of the distinctions between Marymount and Loyola, and then the three different religious communities, each with their own charism, which is preserved and moved forward in the institutes that Mary Beth just mentioned. But the common denominator here in the merger of Loyola and Marymount is the Catholic identity. And I think that as we move forward and our own the presence of our own members decreases. Hopefully it doesn't go away altogether, but it certainly has diminished, and it will diminish even further. But we do not lose the underlying common denominator of it all, which is our Catholic identity. I think that really is reinforced by the merger of that involved the three distinct religious communities coming together to form one common enterprise.
The reason the merger worked is because the traditions of educations and the charisms were so aligned. The education of the whole person, interdisciplinarity, I want to say faith formation in an ecumenical world, that whole receptivity to the movement of God and the Spirit in all peoples. A global consciousness was always a part of all of our traditions. So throughout the decades, Tim, I think that has continued to grow and to emerge. LMU has continued to focus on the student and also on the people that provide the environment for the students to serve, whether it's faculty, staff, or the administration, and has done so in a variety of ways, in diverse manners, with great receptivity. And I think that's the gift of the three institutions, and I think that's the energy which has enabled the university to move forward through each decade.
We travel now nationally, and we have what we call Beyond the Bluff events, largely for alumni, but also other interested parties, including students who may be applying, their parents, and so on. And we talk about how we are igniting a brighter world. We speak to the very things that you just summarized, Sister Mary, and that is, I'm going to start using that receptivity. I always speak to the outcomes of that. And I talk about the density of smiles on campus. How many smiles per person? Go ahead, walk our campus. You're having a bad day? Go out and meet with 3 students, and you will come back to your office on a flying carpet. There's a real energy. There's a vivacity here that you do not find on other campuses. It starts pre-admissions, even on our tours. It goes all the way to commencement, and then our alumni carry it into the world. What I love most is this generation, the solidarity generation, as I call them, they want to be at a place. We are custom fit for the needs of this generation, for the needs of the world surrounding them. When you look at things like our dedication to action associated with justice, when you look at our receptivity and our sophistication in DEI, when you look at the quality of the teaching, the dedication of the faculty for our students. First faculty I've worked with, 8 institutions. They say the students are my #1 priority. True for Nobelist, Pulitzer, Fulbright faculty, great scholars, great teachers. And we talk about the teacher-scholar model here. So we are finding in public that people are quite energized by us as well. Enrollments have roughly doubled, quality has gone way up, diversity continues to expand. Yet at the same time, I often hear from voices, largely through the internet, that we are losing our mission. We are losing our Catholicity, and I think, golly, we talk about it every meeting, every decision. We spend more money and we have more people dedicated to it than at any point in our history. What's your take on that? Are we evolving? Are we decreasing? Are we elevating?
So
Are we
I think
morphing?
we're coming to a deeper understanding. It's a Trinitarian understanding of a God who is persons in relationship. And that's what the 3 congregations have actually set in motion here on this campus, is religious traditions in relationship. And when people are in relationship, they're moving outward to a bigger world. So you talk about the faculty saying about the students, they're the #1 priority. I say that's relationship. You talk about smiles on campus, walk across campus, everybody greets you, whether you know them or not. That's relationship. So I think we're coming to a deeper understanding of who our God is, who sought to become one of us, to establish the relationship with us in the person of Jesus Christ. So to me, our mission is evolving and deepening. It's not going away. It's very much like the mission that Pope Francis has launched with the Synod, which is a vision of the people of God walking together into the future. And I think that's a relational vision that ties into our Trinitarian understanding as Catholic Christians. That's who God is, persons in relationship.
It's the same idea that Greg Boyle talks about of kinship. That relationship,
Solidarity,
solidarity, kinship, relationship. We talk about it often around here about being with and for others. It's that idea of as Mary Beth says so well, relationship. What I noticed early on when in my role with mission and ministry, when I did become more acquainted with the documents of the R.S.H.Ms and the CSJs, Jesuits speak about the service of faith and promotion of justice. The R.S.H.Ms speak about evangelical justice, which is basically the same thing. And the CSJs talk about the dear neighbor, but that overflows into the Center for Reconciliation and Justice. So all of us have come together around that idea that our commitment to social justice, what university is not committed to social justice, but here it has that further inspiration that comes from the faith commitment that motivates that. And that I think we do need to deepen our understanding of that kind of connection, of how all of that is grounded so beautifully in the Torah and the Gospels, and it's articulated in the Catholic social teaching. Those are things that we, I think, do need to be more upfront about, and not just alluding to them, but really developing our understanding of them, the way we teach and dig more deeply into understanding that dimension of our Catholic identity. Because as you say, maybe that's what does make us different from the other institutions.
Mary, anything to add?
Well, I can understand the concern, but not the overemphasis, because I think we truly are Catholic, as reflected in Mary Beth's and Bob's comments. But we also have to remember we're a university. You know, it's a place to explore the enterprise. It's a place to raise questions, to debate, and to dialogue, particularly for young adults who are finding their way. To confine them is not true to our mission. You know, we are there to create a path for them to become the best possible people they can be, to get in touch with their gifts, and to develop their full potential. So the conversation about being Catholic, you know, sometimes I think that, yes, we do need to listen, we do need to take it seriously, but we have to look at it proportionally, and we have to have confidence in who we are and what we're offering.
That's right. And you know, it's interesting, the feedback we get is really helpful to me, with the exception of when it's politically motivated and then coming in the guise, if you will, of God. Really what St. Ignatius speaks to of, you have to be careful, that may sound like God, but perhaps it isn't. And so often, especially when it comes to diversity, we have to remind ourselves, I didn't pick this body. I didn't pick the family into which I was born, the socioeconomic conditions, the geographical location. None of us selected the time at which we were born. So why wouldn't we be expansive in our love and embrace for all persons born who have the commonality of the gift from God of life? That helps us live better, be more joyful, and as we say, ignite that brighter world. So let's go to the future. 50 years from now, we're going to celebrate, and bear in mind, we're documenting this. Now, as long as the formats don't change and they can still access this video.
Part of a time
That's
capsule.
right.
That's
There you
right.
go.
We'll be in a time capsule.
Period. So we'll have our 100th anniversary, and somebody will be celebrating. You people of the future, we love you, and we're so happy that you're still here, because during these times we wonder whether you will be. But we're glad that you're carrying on a tradition. You rock, and we're very proud of you, even though half of you are cyborgs. What advice would we give to these persons 50 years hence?
I would give the same advice I would give to students here now, because the future will be what we are making now, and that is this level of education, higher education, is a privilege. And they are having experiences here at LMU that are not just geared toward their careers, but to their character. And so they have many gifts and they have many skills. And I would say continue to open your mind and your heart to serve those in need, to reach out to a world that's much bigger than yourself, and learn to leave the world a better place than you found it.
The university itself is over 100 years now. And so I have confidence that 50 years from now, we're going to be continuing along the same trajectory. I mean, yes, things will change. There will, as we said before, there will be fewer members of the religious communities here, but the traditions that have been established and grounded, and the people who have gone before us have shown us the way, and the values we've been talking about here today.
Stay in touch with the times. Read the signs of the times and respond to the signs of the times. I think that's been a particular gift of Loyola Marymount University over these 50 years and 100 plus years. Continue to build on the pillars and encourage our students to be for others, not to be afraid to risk or to stand at the margins.
And it's okay to make mistakes.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Right? Those are typically the ingredients toward phenomenal creativity. And of course, in light of our mission, we hope that in the future you are continuing to encourage learning, that as we learn courageously, that we are educating the whole person in context and that our faith drives us toward justice in ways active for each of us, directly or indirectly. Would anybody have anything they'd like to add?
I think what I would say is the moment of the merger is a moment in time. But things didn't dramatically change before and after that moment, with the possible exception of the name Loyola Marymount, which then existed for several years before the dash was taken out. But my point is, all of it was an evolving reality that began in 1967 when Mother Raymunde first began thinking about this. When women came to campus in the fall of '68, that was another iteration of the developing relationships. When the merger occurred, it was a turning point in the relationships, but they continued to develop with the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I mean, things were not always easy. And I think that's a lesson for us today as we look at the strategic plan, where we're going, where the university's going. Things will not magically fall into place from one day to the next. It'll be an unfolding. Things will gradually deepen and become clearer as we go. And I think that's the refreshing insight from the study of history, is that things are not as cut and dried as we like to think they are. Right. It's life and it's unfolding, and the key is going to be to stay in the conversation and stay in relationships.
And we need people with vision and energy and commitment around this. The other historical note is LMU is, as far as we know, the first successful merger in Catholic higher education of 2 separate male and female entities headed by religious communities, and it's been a lasting one.
Where the name was not lost.
The name was not lost.
The name of the woman's institution was not lost.
Wasn't that a feature of the merger? No Marymount, no merger?
That's
from Sister Raymunde?
That's right. No Marymount, no merger.
Where did you get that? Is that current? Or
Some
is
of the
vintage?
archives.
Wow.
It's 50 years old.
Well, the quality of the cotton in that is extraordinary. I'm guessing it is cotton, right? Because back then,
that's right.
Polyester probably wasn't even.
50 years old. Look at the graphics. Don't you think that is
that is something?
It's pretty meager. But as we move into the future, look at the witness of our students' lives. Look at the difference that they have made in the local city, nationally, globally, in all facets. Whether it's education, the arts, film and television, science, engineering, industry, it's their witness and the testimony of their lives, their leadership. I think that's going to take us into the future.
That's why I always refer to our students as vectors for the greater good, because that's what they are. That's what they become. And increasingly, particularly with this solidarity generation, they become that already while they are here. What they're working on and their effect on the world is already started, in some cases even before they've arrived.
I think LMU has introduced creatively, imaginatively, enthusiastically ways to welcome what they've heard from the students and enable the students to craft what they need for themselves.
Thank you for your wisdom, your observations. What I love the most about this group is you're constantly thinking about that future, as we do at LMU, as we ignite that brighter world. So warm thanks to each of you. Let's wish our community an awesome year to come. Happy fall, welcome back. Go Lions, as we love to say. Enjoy.